The day that changed my life, overcoming manipulation and finding peace. Sitting down to write this still makes me nervous, but I need to share. My name is Claudio. I'm 28 years old, and my wedding day turned into a brutal test of boundaries and courage. I've always been the youngest, growing up under the weight of comparisons with my sister Carla, which had tormented me since childhood. Every attempt to express myself was met with humiliation or emotional blackmail, and my parents never noticed my pain. But that day I knew I had to break this pattern. The mix of fear, anger, and determination was almost physical. Finally, I could choose my life. The beginning of the day was tense. Trying to focus on the wedding details was difficult, as the shadow of my family loomed over every decision. I knew my parents wouldn't understand my decision not to invite Carla, and that distressed me. Every call increased the pressure and guilt. For years, I'd tried to please and avoid conflict. But now, I had to act on my own. My fiancée tried to calm me down, but even she couldn't sense the intensity of the tension. For the first time, I realized I could set boundaries and claim my emotional space. The day would be decisive, and I felt both strength and fear. As I put on the suit, childhood memories flooded back. I recalled every moment Carla had humiliated me or sabotaged opportunities. The pain was intense, but I felt determined. For the first time, I realized I could stand my ground and celebrate my wedding. Every glance in the mirror revealed the man I had become and the boy who had survived emotional abuse. The responsibility was enormous. My life and happiness could no longer be dictated by anyone. The fear still lingered, but something greater grew stronger within me, clarity and courage. I was ready to face what I had always feared. My mother's first call nearly knocked me over. Her voice held anticipation and discontent. I felt anger, guilt, and sadness, but also clarity. For the first time, I realized I didn't have to please everyone. Every word I said reinforced that I could say no. It wasn't easy to face years of emotional manipulation in minutes, but I felt unprecedented strength. For the first time, I realized my happiness didn't depend on their approval. The fear was there, but there was enough determination to sustain it. Each subsequent call reinforced my emotional autonomy. I was breaking old, harmful patterns. When Carla called, the tension reached a peak. Her disbelief and attempts at manipulation stung me, but I took a deep breath and held firm. For the first time, I could look at my sister without feeling helpless or guilty. Every inner word reinforced my control over my life. The pain from childhood still lingered, but it no longer dominated me. I could celebrate my wedding without being emotionally sabotaged. For the first time, I felt genuine freedom. Each firm decision showed that I was breaking familiar patterns and building a foundation of emotional autonomy. My life could finally be my own. After hanging up the phone, I felt both relief and physical exhaustion. My body trembled, but there was an unprecedented sense of freedom. For the first time, I realized I didn't need to carry the guilt of pleasing everyone or maintaining a false sense of harmony. Every step I took with my wife reminded me that building my life with clear boundaries is liberating. Old anger mingled with relief and quiet strength. For the first time, I felt like my life could be lived fully. Every painful memory now served as a reference to strength. Breathing without fear or guilt was transformative. I finally felt true emotional freedom. Walking down the aisles toward the ballroom felt heavy, yet liberating. I could hear the soft music and the guests' conversations, but my focus was on the emotional turmoil within. I remembered every humiliation from my childhood and felt determined. For the first time, I realized I could stand my ground and still celebrate my wedding. Each step reminded me that I was breaking patterns that had limited me emotionally. My bride held my hand, offering silent strength. I felt anger, fear, and anxiety, but also courage and clarity. For the first time, I set boundaries without guilt. Breathing deeply reinforced that I could live fully, emotionally protected, facing painful memories with strength. Arriving at the salon brought intense emotions. Every look from my family seemed to test my decision. I felt sadness, anger, and fear, but also strength. For the first time, I realized I didn't need to give in to emotional pressure. My fiancé was by my side, reinforcing that I had made the right choice. Every hug from someone who truly cared was a relief. For the first time, I felt my emotional strength balance the fear and tension. The weight of childhood and manipulation was still there, but it no longer dominated me. Breaking harmful patterns brought an intense sense of freedom. For the first time, I realized that living fully was possible. During the ceremony, every step was a silent affirmation of autonomy. My chest was tight, but I breathed with determination. Every gesture from my family reminded me of the years I'd given in and tried to please. Now I could celebrate without submission. My bride reminded me of the true reason for that day, our love. For the first time, I faced fear and manipulation, feeling freedom and strength. Painful childhood memories transformed into a drive to live fully. For the first time, I realized that protecting my emotional space isn't selfish, but necessary. Every breath was a reminder that I could finally live my life. When the time came to take my vows, my voice trembled, but I spoke firmly and sincerely. Each word expressed love, but also affirmed that I would no longer be manipulated. Looking at my family, I sensed disbelief, but I didn't give in. For the first time, I felt my worth didn't depend on them. Every heartbeat reminded me that I could choose my life and set boundaries. Fear still existed, but it was balanced by clarity. The wedding became a symbol of overcoming, showing that facing trauma and setting boundaries brings emotional freedom. For the first time, I felt my inner strength was sufficient for any challenge. After the ceremony, as we walked down the aisle, I felt both proud and vulnerable. Proud to finally maintain my boundaries, vulnerable to realize those childhood wounds were still raw. Every compliment from supportive friends reinforced that I had made the right decision. For the first time, I felt my happiness didn't depend on my family's approval. My old anger mingled with relief and a quiet strength I hadn't known I possessed. For the first time, I realized I could breathe without guilt. Every loving gesture reinforced that emotional autonomy was possible. I was living fully. Amidst the party, I felt my body react to the emotional turmoil of the past few hours. Fatigue, headache, and extreme tension coexisted with a strange electric energy of inner strength. My every gesture, every firmly spoken word reinforced that I could finally put myself first. My sister tried to provoke me, but I wouldn't give in. For the first time, I realized that anger and fear can be balanced by clarity and resilience. Taking deep breaths became an anchor to keep me from getting lost in old emotions. I was learning to live fully, protecting my emotional space. Talking to supportive friends, I felt profound relief. Each sincere hug reinforced that life can be lived without fear or constant judgment. For the first time, I realized that setting boundaries isn't selfish, but caring for my well-being. The clarity was intense, liberating. Each gesture of support reminded me that I wasn't alone. For the first time, I felt I could make important decisions without guilt or fear overwhelming me. Every painful memory from the past now served as a reference for my strength. The feeling of quiet empowerment showed that my emotional autonomy was concrete and lasting. As I walked through the hall, I observed my family's reactions clearly. For the first time, I didn't feel powerless in the face of critical looks or manipulative gestures. My sister still tried to assert herself. My mother expected me to surrender, but I remained firm. For the first time, I realized that control over my life was in my hands, and my happiness didn't depend on them. Fear still existed, but determination and inner clarity were greater. I could celebrate life without giving up my emotional autonomy. Feeling fear and pain were inevitable, but they coexisted with courage. As I reached the dinner table, I felt exhausted and silently grateful. Exhausted from the emotional and physical toll, but grateful for having the courage to stand up for myself and live without giving in to manipulation. For the first time, I realized that emotional autonomy wasn't just a concept, but a concrete practice. Every gesture of support reinforced that I was on the right path. I still felt fear and anger, but accompanied by clarity and strength. For the first time, I understood that overcoming pain doesn't require the absence of pain, but the ability to continue despite it. Marriage became an affirmation of boundaries and self-respect. Later, observing my family in the salon, I realized how used they were to emotionally manipulate me. Experiencing this was painful, but it also gave me clarity. For the first time, I realized I didn't need to give in to expectations or try to please others to maintain the semblance of peace. The sense of control over my life was almost physical, every muscle acknowledging that I could finally exist without fear. I still felt the weight of conflict, but now it was accompanied by confidence. For the first time, I felt I could breathe without guilt, that my life finally belonged to me. The emotional freedom was intense and transformative. My sister approached, trying to provoke me, but I took a deep breath and stood firm. For the first time, I realized that strength isn't the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. Each internal phrase reinforced my resolve. I can choose my life. The anger was there, but it didn't dominate me. Now I could transform it into clarity and courage. I realized I could celebrate important moments without being emotionally sabotaged. This feeling of freedom was intense, almost overwhelming. For the first time, I could look my sister in the eye without fear. Each firm decision reinforced that I was breaking patterns of manipulation. Talking to supportive friends and family, I felt enormous relief. Each sincere hug reinforced that my life didn't need to be sacrificed for my family's approval. For the first time, I realized that setting boundaries isn't selfish, but rather caring for my well-being. The clarity was intense, liberating. Each gesture of support reminded me that I wasn't alone, and that the strength I needed to face my family came from within. For the first time, I felt I could make decisions without fear or guilt. Every painful memory from the past now served as a reference for my strength. As I walked through the hall, I observed my family's reactions clearly. For the first time, I didn't feel powerless in the face of critical looks or manipulative gestures. My sister still tried to assert herself. My mother expected me to surrender, but I remained firm. For the first time, I realized that control over my life was in my hands, that my happiness didn't depend on them. The fear still existed, but my determination and inner clarity were greater. I could celebrate life without giving up my emotional autonomy. Feeling fear and pain coexisted with courage. As I reached the dinner table, I felt exhausted and silently grateful. Exhausted by the emotional toll, but grateful for having the courage to stand up for myself and live my life without giving in to manipulation. For the first time, I realized that emotional autonomy wasn't just a concept, but a concrete practice. Every gesture of support reinforced that I was on the right path. I still felt fear and anger, but now accompanied by clarity and strength. For the first time, I understood that overcoming pain doesn't require the absence of pain, but the ability to continue despite it. Marriage became an affirmation of boundaries and self-respect. As we left the salon, I felt a heavy silence. Between my family and me, they were still trying to process my stance, incredulous at how firm I'd maintained my stance. For the first time, I realized that my happiness didn't depend on their approval. Every step with my wife reminded me that building my life with clear boundaries is liberating. The weight of years of fear and submission began to dissipate, replaced by strength and clarity. For the first time, I felt I could breathe without guilt, or fear. Every supportive gesture from friends reinforced that my choices were valid. On the drive home, I felt physically and emotionally exhausted, but also a newfound clarity. For the first time, I realized I could face future family conflicts without losing my peace. I learned that manipulation no longer needed to affect me. Every painful childhood memory was transformed into strength, not weakness. I was learning to use fear, guilt, and anger as fuel for resilience and courage. For the first time, I felt that life could be lived fully, even amidst complicated relationships. Arriving home, I felt the welcoming silence that only a true home offers. For the first time, I could relax without worrying about judgment or manipulation. Exhaustion and peace coexisted intensely. For the first time, I realized that happiness doesn't depend on pleasing my family or maintaining illusions of harmony. I could choose my path, protect my emotional health, and celebrate my life the way I deserved. Every painful memory that surfaced was a reminder that I had survived and grown stronger. Overcoming was becoming concrete and tangible. In the days that followed, I realized some wounds were still raw, but the impact of that day changed my perspective forever. I still felt fear and anger, but now accompanied by strength and clarity. For the first time, I understood that overcoming adversity isn't a permanent state, but an ongoing process of decision and action. Every difficult situation reminded me of my wedding day and the sense of control and freedom I experienced. That memory became my inner guide, reinforcing that I can set boundaries, protect my space, and live without succumbing to manipulation. Today, as I write this, I still feel scarred, but also proud and hopeful. I learned that facing family manipulation and setting boundaries isn't easy, but it's necessary. Marriage wasn't just a celebration of love, but a turning point in my emotional life. For the first time, I felt I could live autonomously, protect my space, and celebrate my happiness without fear. The pain still exists, but now it coexists with strength, clarity, and hope. I survived, I grew, and I'm learning to live fully,